Hi guys, and welcome to the very slightly crude build video of this 3D printed fuselage. Thanks for purchasing it if you have purchased it, and yeah, I'm very keen to see your rendition of this. Of course, you don't need to put the rockets and jets on, you can just leave it as is. So yeah, let's get cracking. Please take note of some of these important print orientations. Particularly the fuselages, the landing gear is very important. The small parts, the rest of the parts which are flat, you can just print flat. And these are the print settings for best results. Even with a 4mm nozzle, you can print at 0.6. We're going to start off by taping up these three parts. So that's the hood, the battery tray or the motor tray, and the rear part of the fuselage. Now the reason for this is because if you glue on the bottom part and you think it's going to fit, then when you try and put the hood on, then the hood won't fit because the parts somehow they distort slightly, and then it won't fit nicely. So what I suggest is that you actually tape it up as best you can, making sure that the lines all line up, and once that's all taped, then remove the hood and very carefully glue in the bottom piece, making sure that it doesn't move. In other words, it doesn't move beyond the 90 degrees to the back part, if that makes any sense. So I would suggest just dropping a few drops of super glue in this onto the inside. So you're going to glue this from the inside initially, and keep fitting the hood to make sure that it doesn't twist the construction, because once it's glued in and you try and fit the top hood and it's not exactly square, you're going to have a bit of a problem. So this is quite an important part. So tape it up very tightly, remove the top hood. And when you remove the hood, of course, the bottom tray will want to pull towards the back fuselage. So just make sure that that doesn't move as you tack it into place. Once it's tacked into place and you've refitted the hood to make sure it fits squarely, then you can go ahead and glue all that together from the inside. A nice big piece, nice big bead of glue and some activator, and yeah, let's move on. I suggest printing yourself a sheet of 2 layers, just a sheet 100 by 100 square, a 2-layer sheet. And you're going to cut out some of these tabs and you stick them on the inside of the one part of the tail boom, as well as the tail boom that fits to the fuselage. And then when you slide the next piece over, then you know that it's going to line. But just be cautious that you don't foul up the mating surface of the tab and the fuse and the tail boom with glue. If you've got glue there and you try and push the two parts together, they won't fit nicely. So just clean up that little bit of glue that might be over there, so that when you dry fit and test your parts, they mate perfectly. I suggest marking out the tail to make sure that it's nice and square with a piece of tape. And then you don't remove the tape, but you just cut the tape on the join. So when you push the tail back in, you know exactly where it lines up, and you can glue that into place. So yeah, just check that everything's nice and square, and then before you glue, because once you glue it, you're stuck. So just make sure that it's all square to everything. This photo is a little bit off center because just the way it was taken, but it's very square. At this point you can measure and align and insert the stabilizer. Make sure that the distance on each side is equal. I would suggest sanding the stabilizer first, so that you can get right up to the edge. If you're going to be painting it or making it pretty, you can see I've also put a little bit of spot filler on some of the parts, just to make it super smooth. So this is very easy. If you are going to cut out your windows, this is the time to mark them and cut them. You can see I have glued on the bottom part of the fuselage. I'm marking out my windows. If you're not going to make transparent windows, you can leave this section and just paint them in later. If you're fitting your Bell or UH-1 internals, you will notice that the two mounting holes where the screws go through are already pre-designed. So I would suggest just putting 2 screws in, and then you can glue these 2 tabs in place. Put some tape underneath your electronics so that you don't glue them to the motor plate. Press these 2 white parts on either side right against the fuselage, so when you slide it in later, it'll locate against the motor plate and lock into place. Once you've glued these 2 tabs with a couple of drops of glue, you can remove your internals and then glue that in nice and solid. At this point you can glue the 2 square bits on the opposite side underneath of the motor plate, so that when you screw it in it's got some meat. Also take note that I have glued in temporarily with just a few drops the bottom part of the motor plate, because you need to fit this plate into place and make sure it sits flush against the bottom of the fuselage. And before gluing your motor plate in, I would mount the electronics on these 2 screws. You've got the back tabs in now, so you can slide the electronics into the back tab, mount the screws, and then you slide the whole construction into the fuselage and square everything up so that the main shaft is square, parallel, 90 degrees to the ground plane. And then I would mark inside the fuselage with a pencil to see where this plate is going to fit. Then you remove all of this, remove your electronics, and then you can glue this plate into place. The tab for the hood looks like this. So the long piece goes underneath the one lip, and the short piece goes on top of the other lip. So when it's all together, it looks like this. So you will glue in where my index finger is, not the small piece. You will glue in the part where the battery goes, so that you glue in. And you're not going to glue the small part into anything yet. You're going to just press it into this part, make sure it fits nice and smoothly. You might have to just file it a little bit so that it goes in and out nicely. It mustn't be very stiff. It can be somewhat stiff, but it mustn't be extremely stiff. So just make sure it slides in nicely. So now I've glued in this bottom piece, and then I just check that this fits nicely. You'll notice there's a small gap between this front tab and the fuselage. That's because the hood has to go underneath there. So now I'm just refitting the hood. My little front tab is in. I'm going to just tape up the hood squarely because I'm about to glue in the small tab. And we do that from the bottom like this through the window if you've cut a window. If you haven't cut a window, just drop a couple of drops of super glue right in the corner there with some activator. Then you pull this part out and that tab will stay behind. Then you can glue that nicely into place, and you know that it's going to fit nice and squarely. And this is what that piece then looks like. If you've printed your hood and you find that it doesn't quite line up with the bottom part of the fuselage because maybe a bit of print warping or whatever, just mark 2 holes on these parts underneath. Then you fit it back onto the fuselage. Then you mark the 2 holes that you've just drilled on the bottom part of the fuselage. and you drop 2 toothpicks into that piece, so that when you slide this hood on, that these 2 parts will locate on those 2 toothpicks. You might have to groove it out slightly so that it slides in nicely. Same procedure for the back end. You'll see there's the hole there already. This section is showing the top motor mounts. Once you've bolted your electronics in, fiddle them into place. Make sure they line up properly, nice and square. Just put these 2 screws in loosely to line everything up. And then once you've lined everything up, you can glue these side posts into place, just like this. So I've just got everything mounted up nice and squarely, and through this big opening you'll just drop a couple of drops of super glue with some activator. Then you remove the electronics and you mount them for good. Now the landing gear is quite a special design. You'll notice that the back leg is angled back towards the front of the fuselage. So when you pop the front leg in, you actually have to stretch that back leg to pop it into the back of the fuselage, and that basically keeps it intact. However, if you want to, you can also glue it in place, of course. There's the 4 small, very weird shaped round disc parts that fit in perfectly into the fuselage. You will find them. There's 2 back ones and 2 front ones. The front ones are the smaller ones. The back ones are the ones with the odd shaped hole. So dry fit those first onto the landing gear before you try and attempt to fit them through the fuselage. So take the landing gear off, fit those parts on dry to make sure that they fit nicely. But they mustn't be loose, they must be fairly tight, they must not flop around, because you're going to press this landing gear into place afterwards. Then fit your landing gear through the fuselage and pop the 4 round things into place. You will see that they fit basically only in one direction because they follow the shape of the fuselage. And then you can either glue the whole lot into place, or what I've done, I've just glued the spaces into the fuselage so that I can remove the landing gear at any time very easily by just popping it out. If you want to secure the landing gear but still have it removable, the front little leg right on the front part, you can drill a small hole in the flat part that is inside the fuselage, and then you can print yourself a little 2mm washer with a 3mm hole inside, and then you can secure that part from the inside. I'll see if I can add a photo of that procedure for the video. And that's basically all there is to it, guys. If I've left anything out, please just send me a message. Mike, how do I do this? How do I do that? And I'm more than happy to help you and assist you. And yeah, show me your finished results. Now for the FW450 internals, you will not mount this motor plate, of course. That whole construction just fits straight to the bottom of the fuselage. You will drill 4 small holes in the appropriate place and basically bolt the internals straight to the bottom of the fuselage. You might print yourself 4 10mm discs with some 3mm holes, just to give your bottom mounting screws a bit more meat. But if you have any questions about that, please just drop me a message and I will gladly assist you.